morning to all of my viewers and listeners. You must be wondering, of course, what is she coming with all this laughter already? Well, when you see my guest, if you'll know, I'm sure you'll be able to know, right away, why is it that she's laughing already? He did not even wait for me to start the program. But welcome to another CCG Hour, and thank you very much for joining. Good morning, Bishop.
Good morning, Prophetess. And it is good to be here. And I'm not because of her laughing, because if I were, then she'd be making me a laughing stock, and I'm not that.
I know that most of the viewers and listeners, I'm sure that because Bishop is obviously not a stranger to you, you must know that Bishop is the cause of much laughter. He's not a laughing stock, but I was saying to him that I find it rather interesting that, for the past few months since the CCG Hour has been on, I have had guests that are older than I am in age. And then, of course, I made a comment, and, well, at the same, just when I was trying to get over the comment, I had to come on live. And, of course, the good thing is that I can share the comment, so I was like, okay, I was speaking about a particular individual that we both know that actually was a guest here. And I was saying, why is it that you all, when I say you all, the guests, why is it that you all do not look like your age? So I asked him, of course, if he has ever disclosed his age on on this forum. And he said, of course, very proudly, yes, he's 72. So that amazed me, because he doesn't look anything like 72. And of course...
That's because I went to the barber yesterday.
So when you don't go to the... But that means you go to the barber a lot.
No. I go to the barber once a month.
So then I happen to see you most of the times whenever you just come from the barber. Yes, because you always look well-groomed.
Anyway, let's leave that alone.
Yes, we will leave it alone. But I usually say that not to flatter anybody, because that, of course, doesn't make sense. It's not a good thing to practice, flattery. But I really am looking forward and hoping that when I get to 72, I will be looking, I wouldn't say just like you, because I know you will have some kind of comeback for that. But I will be healthy looking and looking, because you said there is a difference between looking, feeling,
and being.
2 minutes on that. I love to learn wisdom.
I don't know how much wisdom there is in that.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, people feel how they feel. And a lot of people, their feelings has nothing to do with them. It has a lot to do with their reaction to things.
Right.
How you look is another thing. Because you might look happy, but deep down inside you're carrying quite a burden.
Of course.
I mean, I met a man yesterday who had lost his best friend. And when he greeted me, hey, Bish, how you doing?
Yeah.
And then when he settled down, he said, I've just lost my best friend. And then how you are is another thing. Because I often kid people and say, when you reach my age, you don't know how you are. Because you could drop dead at any minute.
True.
How you are has nothing to do with how you feel or how you look. And in a certain sense, how you are as a religious person, I would say, how you are is in God's hands. God alone knows how you really are. Because we all know the stories of people who went to see the doctor one day and the doctor said, oh, you're fine.
Oh, you're fine, yeah.
One of my very, very good friends, who he had an ongoing heart problem. So he went to get his checkup. And the doctor told him, well, you're okay, man, you're okay. The next morning he dropped dead over his books.
Are you
serious? 10 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
So how you are, if you're young and so on, usually you have a sense of that. But when you see you're moving down in age, you don't know when that moment will come when everything just collapses around you.
And that is something that maybe that a whole lot of people just don't want to have to deal with, don't want to have to think about.
A lot of people. And one of the things that I think resent is not too strong a word. One of the things I resent about the times in which we live, people call you and say, my mother has passed. And my sense of humor tells me, which exam?
Well,
I mean, we don't want to say my mother has died.
Yeah.
She's died. And for us, death is a wonderful word. because if you are a believing Christian,
that is it.
Death is the gateway into.
But that is the whole key there. And that brings us into the topic, that we're looking at this morning, because we're looking at Lent, which we're just about to begin. It'll be next week, Wednesday, God's will. I thought, without a doubt, that it is something that we should really get into. I mean, I've done my fair share of research, and I have my whole take on it.
Well, then you don't need me.
No, I do need you, because my research will only bring one perspective. And I know that, for example, traditionally, people have been thinking, Lent is a Catholic thing. And that, of course, research has taught me that is not the case. So, for me, the research had to be not just finding out about Lent itself, but really understanding, what it's about, why. I have a whole set of questions that we may or may not get through it. That's fine, but it's certainly, I thought that especially if there were, or our viewers and listeners that are not Catholic or do not have that type of traditional, contact with anything to do with feasts and so forth, that they would really appreciate, knowing about it. So, mainly that's why I have you here. I really want us to go into it because, and especially even now, people will be like, we don't have time for that anymore. That was then. That was traditional. Yes. Is it really just traditional? You know what I mean? So if we could look at it just from the place, and even again Lent and Easter, because from the time people hear Lent, they're automatically associated with Easter, and of course Easter bunnies and eggs, and it's like, So I really wanted us to put Lent into perspective, because I think it needs to get the kind of perspective, for people to really understand. So,
well, the first thing is that, I was very happy the first year I was here in Grenada as Bishop for Lent, because there was no carnival before.
Right, because we don't have that.
Right, Carriacou has it, but Grenada doesn't. And that was the third time in my life.
Did Carriacou have carnival this year?
No, not this year.
No, I know, I'm just one. I know.
Yeah, Carriacou observes carnival in the normal time.
Oh,
in the usual time.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering.
But I studied abroad, so I've had experiences in the U.S. especially, which is not a Christian country, no matter how much they want to say it is. You have the Wednesday, the Ash Wednesday, as part of the church's calendar for what we call the mainline churches.
Right.
Okay, but for the other churches, it's not.
Right,
the religious groups. So Monday and Tuesday is not carnival.
Right.
Although some West Indians overseas like
they
to
will
do their thing. But because of that, you're forced to focus on what Ash Wednesday is. Because carnival really became a part of the preparation for Ash Wednesday.
You are serious?
Yes.
Okay, so then maybe we have to go there.
There are a number of
things, a
number of challenges here. Because let me begin with something which is deep in our Catholic roots, but which a lot of other people don't realize. Your Christian life is one thing. You're living one reality in the Lord. But as a human being who is growing and developing and so on, there are different aspects of that you enter into from time to time. There are some fundamental principles. One is that we have to die to ourselves. The other is that we die in Christ. A third is that we hope to rise in Him. Now, these are basic things about the spiritual life. For instance, very early on in my own spiritual journey, a spiritual director gave me Galatians 2:20, which I always remember because it was 2:20 current. Before that, I'd been going with 1:10 current, and all of a sudden, at a certain point in time, this spiritual director told me, it's time to take 2:20. Sorry, folks. I thought that's
You know that means.
You see, when I came in, Wendy had me so caught up in the conversation that I forgot to switch off. But excuse me and your forgiveness. Yes.
Yeah.
So, and so this whole business of the journey that we're making, when I switched to 2:20 current, it was because I was given Galatians 2:20 as a core description of the journey that we all have to make. I live, no, not I, Christ lives in me. And I continue to be amazed at how applicable that is. Because all of us, the very first thing we have to do is to live, to be who we are, to discover who we are, to grow. And the teenage years are the years when that happens. Right? But then we have to know, I live, no, not I. The self that you discover then has to be a giving self. Right? A self that is given away, not I. And in giving away that, marriage, for example, is a time when you're supposed to do that. It's not for the father to get the bride away. It's for the bride to know that if I'm getting married to this man, I'm giving myself to him. I give myself away, that's a song. And then the groom must also understand that, which is what a lot of men don't understand.
But it has not, the church has not, and when I say the church here, I'm not just talking, of course, not, not any particular religious group, the church, the body of Christ. A lot of people have not come to that realization in the first place because it has not been what we've been taught. It has not been what has impregnated anybody.
This is where there's a lot of deepening to go on at every stage of Christianity.
Yeah.
When people tell me I am a Christian, I always smile. When I hear people saying, as we're fond of saying, Grenada is a Christian country, I smile. Because being Christian is always over and against the reality in which you're living. So being a Christian now is not the same as being a Christian when Hitler ruled Germany or when it was prosperous in the 60s and 70s. Being a Christian now has its own unique challenges. For instance, Christians in the United States are faced with the challenge of where does Donald Trump fit into God's plan? And we know how they've interpreted that. Right? So for me to live, I must grow, and the task of what we call catechesis, of teaching our children especially, but also knowing that it's something that goes on all your life. The task of that is to help you in the light of Christ to discover more and more who you are. And one of the things that makes me very happy with myself, but I shudder to think how I fail to teach it to others, especially to young men, that hey, anybody who tells you you're nobody, tell them get lost. Because you are a son or daughter of God, right? If you are in Christ, you share in his sonship, as son of God. Now that is, some people say, oh yes, I'm a son of God, and you hold your chest up. No, the son of God is one who came down, who emptied himself, Philippians. And you have to learn how to do that. But before you can empty anything, you have to build up something.
Sure.
Right? So the task of your childhood years, and this is where good parents come along. And this is where the family structure in Grenada is doing some people a disservice, because few people take our children and help them to know who they are.
But the parents who have these children, so we have to go all the way back now to generations and generations. Exactly, because we know what has happened in the past. We won't get into that.
We could talk about that.
Exactly. We wouldn't go anywhere.
But now you see, so what you have is a training. And part of that is when Jesus says, if you follow me, deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. And at every step of the way, therefore, part of the training is this self-denial.
Right.
And when you understand human nature, you realize this is why I say Christianity is not about some otherworldly thing, Christianity is about now. And if you follow the Christian principles, I'm not talking just about opening the Bible and saying the Bible say, but if you understand the principles, you realize, as I like to say to young people, anything you want to do and do well, you have to deny something else in yourself.
Exactly.
If you want to play the piano and play it well, you have to deny yourself the going outdoors.
Exactly.
You have, if you want to keep, if you want to keep healthy, healthy dental health, you have to deny yourself the time when you want to lie in bed and say, later you're brushing your teeth. If you're not taking care of your teeth in certain ways, you're going to land up in trouble later on. So there's that principle of self-denial, what we call in Catholic spirituality mortification, which means dying to certain things. And what happens is that there are seasons in the church's year. Lent, Advent are the two main ones, but then you have Easter and Christmas. When you prepare to celebrate, we say celebrate the birth of Christ, we say celebrate the coming of the Holy Spirit, but it's also, in fact, celebrating a part of the human journey with God.
Right.
And if you want to be, and this brings me back to one of the points you made earlier, if you want to be authentically human and Christian, there are some things you cannot get away from. And Lent celebrates the fact that there are some things that you should be doing if you want to be a full human being.
Okay, so I had made the point earlier where a lot of people think that Lent is a Catholic thing. And I mean, you've outdone the, the concept of that, because even for what people might call evangelical or Protestant, which is where people would more or less, place me, they would say, oh, well, the whole thing is why wait for a particular season or a special time to, to do this? Why not just be in a place where you're always denying yourself, where you're always, what will be your take on that? Even before we go directly into the whole breaking up of Lent.
My take on that is very simple. It is that we are human beings, and our nature, who we are, requires that from time to time we put a focus on certain things to emphasize the fact there's a part of our ordinary existence. No man goes around every moment of every day kissing his wife.
True,
right?
well,
but there are times
for real,
when he
I
needs
hope not,
to
because that
focus,
can become
when he
very
needs to
annoying.
focus on her. Well, I don't know.
I'm telling you. And maybe a few of the wives out there will be like, oh no, as much as it is that I need to know and to see the show of affection, I also don't want it, as you said, every moment. I'm just being deliberately
but a
naughty.
lot of women complain about the fact they ain't getting it at all.
No, but you see, that's what I'm saying. The tall ones will definitely want that. But if that continues every moment of every day, all day, yeah, definitely.
I can't say I understand because I'm not married, but I can see. But my point though is that when we look at life in a normal way, we realize that there are times of celebration, of highlighting certain things. I know an old guy who used to bring a bit of ice cream every day for his wife when he was coming from work. And that was in the days when ice cream cups were expensive and so on. And she appreciated that until the day he died. And when he died, she said, oh God, I'm going to miss my ice cream. She didn't say I'm going to miss him.
Oh my God.
But my point here is that it's in these simple things which you emphasize what you are really feeling every day, every minute perhaps, right? Now, there are times, therefore, when you need to focus, because if you don't focus, it's like practicing any instrument. If you don't focus on the practice, you lose it. We know from our limbs that our limbs get flabby. So you may be exercising self-denial and mortification every day. And there will be times outside of Lent,
of course,
when you will go through a period of deep mortification. But Lent helps you, and with the whole church, to have a sense of that. And within the Lenten liturgy, there are lessons to be learned. Every Sunday in Lent, in what we call now the common lectionary, which makes it clear that there are a group of Christians who agree that this is the history of the church. Although we are divided, we know that in the year 1000, the Orthodox Church separated from the Catholic Church. We know that in the 15th and 16th centuries, a lot of that happened as well. Those who, up to that time, were one in different ways, they have agreed that there is a common lectionary. And that common lectionary is wonderful because it takes you from Ash Wednesday right through to Easter Sunday into Pentecost and Trinity Sunday. Okay.
Ash Wednesday. Why? Especially for how can I put it? Non-celebrate. Those who don't celebrate Lent. Why? Because the sad thing is that when we don't celebrate, we of course we tend to make a whole lot of comments. I am particular about the comments that people make about things that they don't understand. I just have I don't know if I could call it a pet peeve. I don't think it is a peeve. I just think it is something that as human beings we really need to, sort of get away from.
The need to understand.
Yeah.
It's a wisdom. right? When it becomes a peeve, get rid of it, right? But we all have a need to look at those who are doing things which we don't understand and try to understand.
Correct.
Like when Muslims bow down in the
Exactly.
mosque.
If you understand,
I say to I remember somebody telling me once that the reasons why women don't go to the mosque is because when the men bend down, their backside is facing But that's not true.
Yeah, clearly
That's
not.
not true. You know,
Yeah,
people
and I'm
make
sure that
and
was
joke
said
about it.
very confidently or very jokingly.
Yeah,
It's
no.
like, this is it.
So
this
that
is
ignorance
the
we
reason.
have to disregard. But to get back to your question, Ash Wednesday is really the beginning in order to get in the 40 days.
Right.
Because the Sundays are not counted.
Oh, it's not.
No. Sundays of Lent are not counted in the 40 because you're not supposed to fast and so on a Sunday. Sunday is a day throughout the Christian year when you celebrate the resurrection of the Lord. Right?
Okay.
So in every Christian church,
That I
this is
didn't
a very-
know at all.
This is a very
Research didn't
important-
even tell me that one. Are you
Well,
serious?
So
The
Sunday
research
is the
wasn't thorough.
resurrection of the Lord. Right? So
Okay.
we don't fast on Sundays. We have no. It's not the same Lenten penance. You have
Okay.
the messages that apply to Lent in the Sunday readings. But Ash Wednesday marks the beginning. And it's very, very important to know, and this is why I mark this off, that the readings of Ash Wednesday remind us that this goes back to the Old Testament, to the prophet Joel, right? When Joel says, let me just go back a bit. Now, it is the Lord who speaks. Come back to me with all your heart, fasting, weeping, mourning. Let your hearts be broken, not your garments torn. Turn to the Lord your God, for he is all tenderness and compassion. Sound the trumpet in Zion, order a fast, proclaim a solemn assembly, call the people together, summon the community, assemble the elders, gather the children. All right? And then it goes on. So here, and there's one thing I want to point out here in the translation, because what Joel says, and what people miss so often, let your hearts be broken, not your garments torn. Right? Render your hearts and not your garments. That is what we say, right? So, but what does it really mean? It refers to the fact that when people were fasting or in deep grief, they tore their clothes. And you can see some of that happening by the graveside sometimes. Hey, woman, look how you behave yourself now. So we have that. So the reading sets a tone that this is not just something that I am doing. Lent is not my thing alone. It is the whole assembly coming together, right, to mourn what is happening in their lives, to grieve over their losses. And that's something a lot of people don't understand either. That it's not only your mother and your father and your children you lose in death, All of us have losses in all kinds of ways. Or many people, when the first time they realize they're losing their hair,
or when it gets gray.
Yes.
That's a loss. You're losing the dark hair.
I am constantly amused when I watch it. Men who consider themselves to be so highly intelligent and so on and so on. And when you look at the hair, it's really gray. they ain't showing none of that at all.
No.
Once you're selling her hair dye for
Listen,
men,
there is I saw it down to yesterday. I went to get this band. Of course, there is gray underneath that. But
why are you hiding it?
No, actually I wasn't hiding it. No, I sports that one. But I just decided I just wanted to keep the hair itself up. And I was looking like, what am I going to get? But I noticed that there was an entire shelf. That particular, I'm like, I knew that there was hair dye. I mean, clearly I've tried them. But
I
didn't know. But I just didn't know there was there was even one from since 18 something, and I'm like, oh my God, doctor, somebody, an old guy. When you look at the face, that man must have died at least 300 years ago. But if you catch him, you can see here, and I'm like, can you imagine? I'm using whatever is his mix now, and I'm like, that's interesting. But yeah, that is certainly a loss that so many people, or the loss of youth. Yeah.
Well,
so how do you grieve this loss? Because the truth is, I've never heard that pointed out to do it with Lent at all. That whole grieving of loss part.
Well, it's a whole set of, it's right through the journey. You know, you're not only losing things and people, you're losing other things. You're losing part of your soul, who you are sometimes, you know, and you have to deal with that. So Lent, let me just finish with the Ash Wednesday.
Okay, sorry, yes.
The Ash Wednesday thing is very, very important, you know. He goes on, the psalm that we use is Psalm 50. Have mercy on me, God, in your kindness and your compassion. That's a penitential psalm, right? And a lot of people know it by heart.
Oh, yes,
and that's beautifully so. But the gospel text is where we find the commandments for Lent, so to speak. He says, be careful not to parade your good deeds before men, Matthew 6, to attract their attention. By doing this, you will lose all reward from your Father in heaven. Boy, when I read them,
I know, right? You know? Oh, you too. It's like, okay.
I am the bishop, you know, and people expect you to look like the bishop, to talk like the bishop, and to do good deeds like the bishop, you know, and people have challenged, Bishop, you're doing this, Bishop, you're doing that. Don't parade it, right? When you give alms, do not have it trumpeted before you, right? Like the hypocrites do, you know. When you pray, do not imitate the hypocrites. They love to say their prayers standing up in the synagogues and at the street corners for people to see them, you know. And when you fast, do not put on a gloomy look as the hypocrites do. So the 3 Ash Wednesday summons us to the Lenten disciplines, what we call the Lenten disciplines. Right? Prayer, fasting, and almsgiving is another word for good works. Okay. So those are the 3 Lenten disciplines. And every Ash Wednesday you hear that. The church summons you to that. Right? And a good preacher will not talk about ashes, he'll talk about the 3 Lenten.
So I've not heard many good preachers. I'm serious. No, for real, because I mean, as a child growing up, you, whether or not you were from whichever, you know, Christian denomination, Ash Wednesday was really, it still became part of your culture. So even if you went to whichever school, even if you did not celebrate Lent per se, you certainly had to go to church, wherever that is. Most of the times you were in either a government or a Catholic school. And so you got the ashes. That's all. Hey, they give ashes today. And that was the sad thing. So they get ashes, but I don't know. Well, I don't know. Certainly that was not explained. Because I'm a very impressionable person. I tend to remember. You know, there are some people, certain things you just kind of remember. And my Christian journey, I remember very clearly a lot of things that happened with me in the Catholic Church. And so, if that was clearly explained, I wouldn't have forgotten. No, for real. I know that for sure. So, what you call in the Lenten disciplines, I've never even heard that term. Not as that term. Of course, I'm not saying that I have the best memory and I must have remembered.
I hope all the people are listening to us who are your followers. I hope those who have never heard it before hear it now.
Yeah, I would hope.
It is central to Lent. The ashes are just a momentary reminder of why you're doing this. Because in the second reading of Ash Wednesday, it says, we are ambassadors for Christ. It is as though God were appealing through us. And the appeal that he makes in Christ's name is be reconciled to God. So be reconciled to God. And how are you reconciled to God? And why do you need to be reconciled to God? First of all, because you're doomed to die. You're like ashes.
You know?
And so the words that the priest says when you have the ashes put on your forehead is remember that you are dust, and unto dust you shall return.
Right. You know? But I believe what I know for sure has been preached is the ashes. By many people, you know, and I'm not, you know, this is not
only many people preaching to get you to come for ashes. There are many people saying things.
Like to explain about the ashes. This is what it's for. This is why, or whatever.
That I wouldn't mind.
Where you get it from? Well,
people are saying, what? Don't go for no ashes. That is the cremation ashes is put on top of that dead people body.
You see trouble again? Well, I didn't.
That is so stupid. That's not true.
But of course, that's not true.
It comes from the palms of Palm Sunday.
That is what I know. I mean, that I know for sure, and I've, you know, but the cremation, ridiculous. Are you serious?
Yeah, they say they're claiming you for the dead Christ. I heard that.
Wow.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Okay, you know what? So at this point, let's take a quick break, and because the time is going quickly, and so when we come back, of course, because we more or less dealt with Ash Wednesday, so then we'll go into Lent itself. So let's take a quick break and we will be back. Let's take a break.
Stronger than now. There's a reason we have been here to serve you for the past 40 years. A reason we have continued to grow. A reason we have continued to celebrate. That reason is you. We have been here to help you plan for your future and here to help you celebrate your achievements. We continue to be here even when the future seems unclear, because one thing is certain: you're the reason we care.
Republic Bank, we're the one for you.
Back. Thank you very much for being here with us. Of course, Bishop, we've gotten not as far as I want to go.
That's the problem.
So so I'm hoping that you will consent to us doing another program during the Lenten season. That would be good. Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. So at least we settled that. So we don't, because there's no way we can rush to finish this off in the next 10 minutes that we have. That wouldn't work. But let's go. So we more or less dealt with Ash Wednesday. Right. Okay, great. I knew you had to leave. Okay, cool. So that's
I
better.
have to leave, but we have about 10 minutes.
Okay. So are we done with Ash Wednesday? I don't find.
No, you see, what I call the 3 Lenten disciplines are very important, not just for Lent. They are important for your formation, your Christian character formation. Because one of the things about Paul is Paul doesn't simply talk about being saved.
At all.
Paul talks about becoming like Christ, more and more becoming like Christ. And if you are in Christ, that's a very common expression of his, then you have a sense of being shaped by Christ more and more into him, so that you are a part of his body, yes, and you have to take that very, very seriously.
But that's the challenge.
You are part of his body, which is the church totally, but you are his body in any particular situation.
But that's the challenge, Bishop.
Yes.
You are teaching that. A few people are teaching that. And now that we're looking at it from the whole perspective of Lent, of the Lent, that being the focus of the discipline, that is not, I just find that it is not really, it should be the focus, but I don't know, maybe people forget it. That is the real, what is it?
It's hard to teach.
Really?
It's hard to teach. Because we live in a world where everything is about what's in it for me.
Well, true.
What's in it for me, And it's easy to tell people salvation.
And leave it there.
I shock some of my Catholic people.
Oh, yes, I'm sure you do.
It's not a question of are you saved. Leave that, God will take care of that. Right? God will take care of that. The more important question is, who are you becoming? Because when you die, the question is, are you in Christ or not?
Correct.
That is,
and that would have taken care of the salvation part anyhow.
Precisely.
Because even if you got quote unquote saved, so which is the whole big seeming drama, and then you didn't become in the image of Christ, then of course, what was the point of
Ash Wednesday is meant to set you on that journey. And then you come to, it's amazing. When you look at the readings, for instance, of this Thursday after Ash Wednesday, as you know, people say,
where do I get this common lectionary? For real, I have to ask.
When things open up, I'll get one for you. Remind me.
I will.
But no, it's available. The Anglicans use it, the Methodists use it, the Presbyterians use it.
Okay.
Yes. Where was I going?
We were on the journey that Ash Wednesday started off.
So Ash Wednesday starts us off on that journey. And I always find it fascinating that the day after Ash Wednesday, the reading is from Deuteronomy. 36.
So every day there will be a reading.
Every day there are 2 readings, and on Sundays 3 readings, which directly help us on the Lenten journey. And as soon as we are finished with Ash Wednesday, we come to this fantastic reading from Deuteronomy 36, where it says, I set before you today life or death, prosperity, choose life. And that's the journey of Lent. What are you choosing as you go through life? And are you preparing yourself spiritually so that when the moment of choice comes, you choose aright? And the moments of choice are coming all the time. I love to, well, there's a bit of boasting, I must admit, but since the year 2000, I have become aware that every single year in Lent, something happens to me that sets me, jolts me first of all, and then asks me to choose what path I'm on. Every year. And that for me is where the reality of Christian life is. It's not in me deciding I'm going on a pilgrimage or a pilgrimage there. No, it's that in the situation.
But then maybe people have taken the whole, because the Lent, Lent is a focus and it is a, whole, well, should I call it a feast?
No,
I just want to make sure that I have
it's
the
the
right.
ongoing celebration.
Right. So maybe because of the focus on that for many people, a lot of people just see the ritual is just the symbols and just but not the real, not what it's supposed to do to you as an individual.
Very important point, prophetess. Very important point. There is a difference in our Catholic theology. There is a difference between the res, the reality, and the sacramentum, which is the sign. So you get baptized, and that is called by us a sacramentum. But what is the res? What is the reality of your life as a baptized person? The res has to do with water and what water symbolizes. Am I willing to be dipped, not into water, but into the water of life, which is the reality? And unless I'm being dipped into that water of life, I don't know what baptism is. Jesus says there's a baptism that I must still receive. How great is my distress till it is over. Wow. When I hear that, I have to repeat that to myself. There's a baptism that I must still receive. I know we're receiving it in Grenada. And how great is my distress till it is over. And the word distress there has to do with the way in which you're pulled in all kinds of different directions. And I get married to you. We're living the sacrament of matrimony, as we call it.
And then there is this baptism now.
Marriage is itself a baptism.
Oh my, isn't that one for a lot of people distress that they want to be relieved of? Oh my goodness, but
So now, the key of Lent is that Lent began when people were preparing for baptism. Every year when the church celebrated Easter, the church baptized people. And at the beginning, people would come and say, I want to be a member of the Christian community. In some instances, it took as long as 3 years before you were baptized.
Really?
3 years, But when it was deemed that you were, in fact, ready for baptism, then you went through a number of rituals. Now, this goes back, the formalization of this is in the year 325.
Oh my, right.
The Council of Nicaea.
That's right.
So it goes way back. So you had to go through these stages. Pope Paul VI revived that through what we call the rite of Christian initiation of adults. So you going through these phases. Usually it would be adults, sometimes some young people would be a part of it. But in those phases, you make your choice all along.
Right.
And there's a point, and I think it's the 5th Sunday in Lent, when you make a definitive choice for good over evil, for Jesus over Satan. Now we say that glibly, do you believe? Glibly.
And of course the answer is always yes.
I have known people who in those moments, boy, it's a real choice they have to make. Somebody who's hooked on drugs, for example, right? How do you make that choice? And one of the songs we sing sometimes on that occasion is Jesus, break every fetter. Jesus, break every fetter. Jesus, break every fetter and set set us free. And I mean, people break down in tears in that moment in the liturgy. So you begin with Ash Wednesday, and Ash Wednesday sets the tone, And Ash Wednesday, when you put on the ashes on your forehead, you are also saying, I'm prepared to bear witness to this. That I am a mortal human being destined for death, but it came to me one Easter and I've lived with it ever since. We are born not to die. We are born to rise again. We are born to rise again. That is where our Christian faith makes a difference.
Yeah.
And what rise again means, we can struggle with that throughout our lives. What does it mean for me to rise again? But the resurrection of Lazarus says you don't have to wait until you go down into the grave necessarily to rise again. It's not just the final resurrection. It's the resurrection out of all the tombs in which we tend to live from time to time.
Oh yeah, and that's a whole different ballgame again. My goodness. So Lent.
Lent is laden. with
Clearly,
symbolism. Laden.
because if we only on the second day.
Well, no, I don't intend to go through all 40 days, but I do want to point out the main days are the Sundays.
Right.
Main days are the Sundays. And for example, on the first Sunday, you hear the stories of the temptation. One year it's Matthew, the next year it's Mark, the next year it's Luke. So it's a 3-year cycle.
Right.
And you hear those temptations to remind you that what you are going into, which is going to be fraught with temptation if you're focusing on the Lord,
Yeah.
that Jesus himself has been through it. Now, we don't have time to go into that now, but one of the points I would like to raise very clearly here, because I hear it too much around Christians. Some people believe that Jesus, because he was God, was not really tempted.
Oh yes,
Just
people
as they
have that.
believe
Yeah.
he didn't really die.
And that he really and truly, he's not really a man. Yeah, he's a man-ish, but he didn't really, have to deal with this stuff. But there is a particular portion of scripture that is really, those scriptures that you walk around with and it's like, okay, that has become a part of you. Is it says that, and I just love the way he put it. He said, Jesus learned obedience through the things he suffered. And I'm like, I remember the first day I encountered it, I was like, nah. Because clearly there would have been a part of me still that was struggling with the humanity of Christ. Is it he died, but maybe maybe he came with some extra anointing and energy that gave him this ability to not fail. And and then when the Spirit of the Lord really had to bring me to that scripture. It's been years ago, but it really, to me, it challenges you and makes you realize that you can. Half of the time is that you wouldn't make the decision to. Yeah, it might be hard,
you see, it's an important thing for young people especially to understand. Until you choose, you have not sinned. Somebody dangling all kind of thing in front of you.
Exactly.
Until you choose, you have not sinned. You may find yourself, and this is for the adult men, I try all the time to put it before men. I have a lot of nice women going down the road, An old man once said to me, he says, Father Clyde, I still have my feelings. I said, yes, brother. He says, yes, I still have my feelings. But are you telling me that that's a sin? I said, well, your feelings are your feelings. What you do with it. That's where the sin comes in. And he gave me an expression which I never got. He says, I look and I appreciate. So, you as a man, you're looking, you're appreciating, You as a woman looking, you're appreciating. Is that sin? No, it's not unless you begin to lust.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Because lust is that first stage where you really are turning the person into an object. And that's where the degradation of the human begins, So that, the temptation of Jesus, that Jesus was really tempted. And you look at the answers he gives. Man does not live by bread alone. Something that we're all tempted to do, and especially when we turn bread as a metaphor for money. Oh God, how many of us trying to live by bread? Oh yes,
well, come on. Bread alone has been bread alone for however long. But it unless and you watch people struggle with that. I usually say, since Adam and Eve Adam and Eve struggling with the same three things that Jesus had to overcome then. But throughout our lives, I just love the way you put this whole Christian journey thing. I honestly just never looked at Lent from that place, because of course I've just been looking at it as, well, it's Lent, why are they even wanting to celebrate it? Year go, year come, which has been the, right now I can say the weak argument against it. Why do it all the time? The truth is the focus is needed. I really believe that that focus is needed, so that it can even strengthen you throughout the rest of the time now when you really want, well, not when you really want to live it, but as you continue to live.
The times in which we live, though, we place a particular onus burden on the church, because the church now has to find ways to get that message across that are in tune with our younger people. Because now what I have found always interesting, the young people don't come to church, but you tell them, come, let's go on a march of Stations of the Cross. Not just inside the church, but Stations of the Cross, where you go, let's say, from, even you could go that far, from Bolio Church to Grenada.
Right, okay.
From Bolio Church to Grenada on Good Friday.
Yeah.
And we've done something like that in San Fernando. Thousands of people have joined us, especially young people. But when they come, to the 3-hour service or the 2-hour service on Good Friday evening, they ain't coming. they don't see anything in that for them. So there's something about getting in touch with the natural proclivities of human beings, especially of young people, whereby you help them to understand the deeper messages that we're talking about. And the other thing is that when you come to the second Sunday of Lent, for example, it's the story of the Transfiguration. And
so much
powerful story.
So much in that.
Because people need to hear.
Yeah.
That, okay, who is Jesus? Now immediately people say, okay, celebrating Lent, that's the revelation that Jesus is the Son of God. But it's more than that. It is Jesus standing there for you.
Yeah.
And all of us, if we are to make the journey of Lent, we need to hear the thing.
Yeah.
You are my son, the beloved.
And that's
my favor rests on you.
And the next question that will automatically come will be this: how do I become this individual? That's it. I just want to recognize all of the comments that we are getting on Facebook right now. And I read, thank you very much. Without a doubt, as we said, we are certainly nowhere close to ending. Well, have we even begun? Barely. But without a doubt, we really want to thank you for the comments, and I'm sure that some of you who may have questions, what you can do is just send the questions in still. It doesn't matter even if the program, ends. Still send the questions in. I will get those from Dwayne, and we'll be able to look at it another time.
We can end with him coming again.
Yes.
This program is coming again.
Well, it certainly has to. But I have learned a lot, as I say, especially the perspective now. So much so that, as I said, that daily, I really didn't know about that daily thing. But just for us to close, I would like you to just repeat again the 3 Lenten disciplines, because please do, because some people may have joined late, and I know that some people tend to look at the program again, but still.
The 3 Lenten disciplines are fasting. Fasting. And when we say fasting, of course, some of you people fast to keep your figure down. That's not
a good motive.
It is self-denial. Another word is mortification. So I often say to children, you don't have to fast from food. The church doesn't tell you to fast. You're not supposed to fast until you're 16 plus. And then when you're over 60, you don't have to fast either. The church is a very caring mother in that regard. But you're not only fasting from that. You should be fasting from television. You should be fasting from social media.
Hey,
Pope Francis the other day was saying, fast from gossip.
Hey, you're killing
fast from
people,
saying
Bishop.
I and I and I and I. It's not, you know, one of the things that afflicts all humanity today is everything is me, 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 me,
Yeah.
me.
Well, we have a
You
lot of
know?
iPhones, I
Yes.
this, everything is
We-
the
as,
I.
as,
Yeah.
as they said, optician should be the only profession in the world because we all eye specialists. You know, so fasting, and then prayer.
Yeah.
But the prayer which is rooted, right, not in me asking God for all kinds of things,
Yeah.
but in me, when you pray, go to your secret room and shut the door. What is Jesus saying there? He's saying prayer is really about an intimate communion with your God. You know, and that when we come together in the fellowship of the church, we come together in the fellowship of the church not simply to do what God says about keeping Sunday holy. We're coming because we ought to be bringing into the Sunday celebration all that we have received from God in our prayer life during the week.
Hey.
If you're not praying during the week, don't come and complain about how the mass or the
I
service is
know,
going.
right? Well, that would make us start something. It's gone to the third one, so we could go.
And then the other is almsgiving or generosity.
Yeah.
You know, there are two Christian virtues which I always associate with solid Christianity. One is gratitude, and the other is generosity. If you are truly Christian, you're going to be a grateful person because every morning you get up and you're alive, every morning you get up and you see the wonderful world. But if you are really grateful, you can't be stingy. And these times, as even the
my.
politicians are saying, we have to be generous.
Yes.
We have to be generous with others. And here I am not saying be generous in the sense of giving your tithes. That's not what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
I'm talking about the generosity that is almost spontaneous.
Yes. Yes.
You know, a lot of us have this habit, which I abhor these days myself, of watching somebody by the side of the road who put out their hand and they say, "Look at the old scamp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Begging.
I
They have
know,
more
right?
money than me in the bank."
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, no.
It's a horrible
It's-
attitude.
It's a sense of saying, if it were not for the grace of God, I might be there.
Correct.
So in being grateful to God for where I am,
Yeah.
I show my generosity to all the others who are in need. And that generosity, when you give alms, you know what could be an alm these days? A hug.
Yep. Oh
For
boy.
those whom you know and care for. COVID-19 has stifled our capacity to touch.
Yes.
But when you're with those whom you really love and care for, especially those in the same house, stop the COVID nonsense and give them a good hug. That is part of the generosity of spirit that the Lord asks of us.
Bishop, you couldn't have put anything other than Bishop-like. Thank you so very much. Oh yeah, you're wondering what that is? Don't worry, I'll give you a own definition.
prophetesses existed before bishops. So let's,
But it really has been a pleasure, and we will certainly will do it again because we need to. We can't leave
well,
the
I
people
promised you to
hanging.
come on your own previous program,
I
and now you're
know,
here.
right? So we're gonna get it done.
Yes.
Thank you so much, viewers, listeners. Thank you very much for joining us
bless you
today.
all.
God bless you all. Yeah, good program.
There's a reason we have been here to serve you for the past 40 years. A reason we have continued to grow. A reason we have continued to celebrate. That reason is you. We have been here to help you plan for your future and here to help you celebrate your achievements. We continue to be here, even when the future seems unclear. Because one thing is certain, you're the reason we care.
Republic Bank. We're the one for you.